Hello students. In earlier lectures we saw the application of chlorine, how chlorine is applied to water in various forms. Now dose of chlorine. Can we have too much of chlorine? Chlorine is a health concern at certain levels of exposure. Drinking water containing chlorine well in excess of drinking water standards could cause irritation effects to eyes and nose. Some people who drink water containing chlorine well in excess of standards could experience stomach discomfort. Drinking water standards for chlorine protect against the risk of these adverse effects. Little or no risk with drinking water that meets the drinking water standard level and should be considered safe with respect to chlorine. Now, types of chlorination. Depending upon the quantity of chlorine added or the stage at which it is added, chlorination may be of the following forms like plain chlorination, pre-chlorination, post-chlorination, double chlorination, breakpoint chlorination, super-chlorination and dechlorination. We will be dealing or studying one by one in the coming lectures. Now, post-chlorination. What is post-chlorination? When chlorine is added in water after all the treatment, it is known as post-chlorination. It is generally done after filtration. The chlorine is commonly added in the clear water reservoir. The minimum contact period should be 30 minutes before the use of water. Post-chlorination is simply called chlorination. Chlorination. It is the normal standard process of applying chlorine in the end when, as earlier stated by me, in the end when all the other treatments have been completed. While treating normal public supplies, the post-chlorination is adopted after filtration and before the water enters the distribution system. The dose of the chlorine should be so adjusted that the residual chlorine is about 0.1 to 0.2 ppm before water enters the distribution system. Now, the next is plain chlorination. The term plain chlorination is used to indicate that only chlorine treatment has to be given to the raw water. No other treatment has to be given. Under plain chlorination, raw water is fed into the distribution system after giving chlorine treatment only. When only chlorine treatment is given to raw water, the process is called as plain chlorination. The amount of chlorine required is 0.5 mg per liter. In hilly areas, only chlorination is done and water is safeguarded against diseases. In some places where good surface water is available, it is used with no other treatment except chlorination. The water of springs and lakes is pure and can be used after plain chlorination. It may also be used during emergencies when full-fledged treatment cannot be given, such as for supplying water to the army troops during war times. Okay, now pre-chlorination. What is pre-chlorination? It is the application of chlorine to water before its treatment, especially before filtration. It may be added in suction pipes or in mixing basins. It reduces the bacterial loads on filters. This results increased filter runs and oxidizes excessive organic matter. This helps in removing taste and odor and makes the water fit for use. Sometimes chlorination is done before the raw water enters the sedimentation tank. It helps in reducing the amount of coagulants required as specified by me that it reduces the bacterial load in the filters. The dose of chlorine should be so adjusted. Water has a chlorine residual of 0.1 to zero point 0.5 ppm when it enters the filter plant. Okay. Now the advantages. If we are reducing the bacterial load filters, what are the it is proving to be very efficient for the pre-chlorination is proving very helpful. So The various advantages of pre-chlorination are: it reduces the quantity of coagulants required, it reduces the bacterial load on filters, it helps in maintaining longer filter runs, it eliminates taste and odor. Also, it controls the algae and planktons in the basins and filters. Now, this was all related to pre-chlorination. Now, super-chlorination. What is super-chlorination? It is the application of chlorine beyond the stage of breakpoint. Beyond the stage of breakpoint. This may be required in some special cases of highly polluted waters or during epidemics of waterborne diseases. It is the application of excessive amount of chlorine to water. The amount of chlorine may vary from 5 to 15 mg per liter of water. This is not ordinarily employed, but if it is practiced only during the epidemics of waterborne diseases. Huge quantity of chlorine which is added in superchlorination is such as to give about 1 to 2 mg per liter of residual chlorine beyond the breakpoint in the treated water. Superchlorination gives a strong odor and taste of chlorine in the treated water, which has to be removed. So the method adopted for removing the odor and taste after superchlorination is dechlorination. Now double chlorination. It is the application of chlorine in 2 points in the treatment process. It is also pre-chlorination with an added treatment to the final effluent from the filters. Now, double chlorination or multi-chlorination refers to the application of chlorine, as I have told you, at 2 or more points in the purification process. Okay, generally double chlorination is resorted to in which chlorine is applied just before the water enters the sedimentation tanks and after it leaves the filter plant. Double chlorination is required especially when raw water is highly contaminated and contains large amount of bacteria and other organic matters. Okay, now this is very clear that when your raw water is containing large amount of bacteria and other organic matters, you will be giving double chlorination at the start of the treatment, that is when water enters the sedimentation tank and after it leaves the filter plant. Okay, before distributing the when the before the water enters the distribution system. So this method is called as double chlorination. Now breakpoint chlorination. Breakpoint chlorination is a term which gives us idea of the extent of chlorine added to water. In fact, it represents that how much dose of chlorination beyond which any further addition of chlorine will appear as a free residual chlorine. That means the amount of chlorine you should just stop it. After that, your whatever chlorine you will be adding to the water, it will be appearing as free residual chlorine. Breakpoint chlorination is that the point where you have to just stop for adding further chlorines to the water. Means again the breakpoint chlorination is the representation or where the point which gives you the exact idea of the extent of chlorine added to water, and before in any further addition of chlorine to the water will appear as a free residual chlorine. Okay, now dechlorination. Now what are the advantages of breakpoint chlorination? The breakpoint chlorination, it will completely oxidize the ammonia and other impurities of water. It will remove color of water which is due to organic matter. It completely destroys all the diseases, bacteria. It removes taste and odor from water. It will remove manganese. It will prevent growth of weeds in water. Now this breakpoint chlorination is asked many times in the GTU papers. It was asked in last May 2018 and October 2016 also. And this double chlorination, it is also very important It is also asked in May 2018 in short form short notes, and this post-chlorination is also asked in May 2018 in the GTU exam. So this double, post, double and pre-point, breakpoint chlorination are very important. You will have to give their advantages also after giving the definition of breakpoint chlorination. The advantages I have just told you. Okay. Now the next is dechlorination. What is dechlorination? Dechlorination is the process of removing excess chlorine from water before distribution to the consumers to avoid chlorine taste. Earlier in superchlorination we saw the superchlorination is the application of chlorine beyond the stage of breakpoint. Means in breakpoint where the we saw that the be point at which your chlorine get excess. Okay, your chlorine get excess in the water, and the stage comes where your chlorine is in the form of excess chlorine as a free chlorine. It behaves in the it will appear as a free residual chlorine. So we further breakpoint chlorination is superchlorination. So the application of chlorine beyond the stage of breakpoint is known as superchlorination. So when the huge quantity of chlorine is added in superchlorination, a strong odor or taste of chlorine is treated with water. It comes in the treated water, which has to be removed. So what will the method to which will be adopted for removing the chlorine taste or odor? The method which will be adopted is dechlorination. So the process of removing excess chlorine from water before distribution to the consumers to avoid chlorine taste is called as dechlorination. This is generally required when superchlorination has been practiced. I have just explained you how after superchlorination dechlorination is done and why dechlorination is done. Dechlorination is done to remove the taste and odor of chlorine which comes after the application of superchlorination. Now, dechlorination process may be carried out to such an extent that sufficient residual chlorine zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 mg per liter do remain in water after dechlorination. Dechlorination may be carried out by adding certain chemicals to water or simply by aeration of water. The chemicals which are used for dechlorination are called as dechlorinating agents. This is very useful in oral examination, as the examiner may ask you that give the chemicals used for dechlorination. So and what are dechlorinating agents? So the chemicals which are used for dechlorination are called as dechlorinating agents. The common dechlorinating agents are sulfur dioxide, activated carbon, potassium permanganate, sodium thiosulfate, sodium biosulfate, sodium biosulfate and sodium sulfate, and etc. So this was all related to the application of types of chlorination. So chlorine applied application of the forms of chlorine we have seen in earlier lecture. Now in this lecture we went through the types of chlorination: post chlorination, pre-chlorination, plain chlorination, double chlorination, breakpoint chlorination, and superchlorination and dechlorination. Okay.